Welcome back to another episode of Get Spooled.
Get spooled.
We're here, all four of us tonight, man.
Who got spooled this week?
Not me. I broke 2 rods in the past week, which hasn't happened to me in a long time. But
I broke a rod.
So get bent.
Get bent.
Get broke.
Get broke.
Get busted.
Get broke.
I haven't gotten spooled, man, but we had some pretty good runs the last couple of days on some big redfish. That's been fun. So
definitely seems like that redfish bite's starting to
for sure
off in all parts of the bay, really.
Yeah, they've been pretty hit or miss, more miss this past week. We got some nice ones on. We fished in events Friday, and I stayed up towards Gandy area, which is typically I'm really trying to make myself do different stuff on these corporate events. But we had a good day. We fished with Travis a little bit, got some small snook, and as the tide dropped out, there's some docks that I hadn't fished in years. And the guy, a lot of it was the clients. The clients I had were cool people, good fishermen, not like they're just out there having a good time. So we hit some slow spots, and I stayed with the dock fishing, and we got railed by what I think was a big snook just by the hit. I mean, broke 20-pound braid like it was going out of style. Yeah. It actually had a loop, and the loop wrapped around the spool, so it just like pow, like instantly.
You didn't have a chance.
Oh no, like and it you could tell it was a huge fish. I mean, it broke 20-pound braid without even like split second. And but we ended up getting some couple overslot reds and uppers, and it was a good day. It was fun. We had that low tide, so we got a little limit on where we can go, but this guy stuck with it, and it was a good trip. I think we ended up with a 29-inch red was our biggest.
Right.
And it was good. We had a good time. And then I had a trip Sunday. I've been fishing some different stuff. And we did a little bit of grouper fishing on some spots that I've been tried periodically before. Didn't have a whole lot of. Rick got a haircut.
Yeah. We're going to go to Rick in a minute just to give us an update on the haircut.
Should we close up on him? Or?
Well, I think it's pretty visible.
Yeah.
First thing I noticed.
Rick,
so
way to steal
why don't you tell us,
today,
about that?
Well, I got them all cut.
Oh, there you go.
So.
All right, cool.
Well.
I like it.
Yeah. That's my yearly.
Yeah.
I love it. He got his yearly service.
You're in for the 100 hours.
Somebody's got to do it.
I think it was like 4 or 5 yearly service.
Yeah. Scott asked, Heat been killing y'all, man. Heat killed me last 2 days. I'll tell you what. I don't know. I fished a group on Saturday and a group on Sunday, and
yeah, it's typically when you get busy and everyone else is slow.
Well,
backwards beers.
We've been on a pretty good redfish bite, and I was like telling these guys, hey, let's try to make it out there and beat the heat, and man, just really couldn't get it going. But it was, man, that tide was just so slow.
Real officer.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't. I think I fished for a total of 5 hours each day, and never had any current moving.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I love it, Scott.
Yeah, I hit some spot I was saying in the bay, and we did it for about 40 minutes. These guys booked me a lot, older gentlemen, and man, we got railed by about 6. I know it was grouper just because of the hit. I mean, 60-pound test, just pow, pow. I'm like, Cat sounds like, guys, we got to hook something here and get. I mean, we just couldn't get them off the bottom. And we did. We got one small snapper, and but it was a good time. We hooked some. Whatever it was big grouper. But I'm gonna go back and try to get a little redemption. I don't know how much bigger stuff I can. I'll have to bring the 100-pound test, conventional stuff. But
there you go.
Yeah, so fishing's been decent. The snook fishing has actually picked up for me. Mm-hmm. Sunday we caught at least 30. I had to get real creative. You know, they just when I have found snook, they'll hit the live bait, but they're not real excited.
That was what I was going to ask you guys. Is I know in my neck of the woods, there's a lot more use of cut bait or dead bait right now than there has been. You know, we've been on. I think when we were getting a lot of that rain, we were still able to fish the live baits with success. But I know that for me and for some other guys, we've definitely been shifting a lot more over to cut bait. To where every trip I'm bringing a 5-pound thing of cut threadies with me.
I'll tell you what I did on the snook the other day. And I got in the trolling motor. I pulled a little Travis deal. I got my tower with the trolling motor and really I seen a few snook, and I've been getting kind of just irritated with the snook when I see them. They won't bite. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sit here. This tide's going out, and I'm going to do everything that I got here. And we threw some pinfish, threw floats. They wouldn't hit the floats. Went to live bait, caught a couple, but they, the snooker, they literally started gunning around the boat on the flats. Like, so I started taking the smaller fishable greenbacks and take them by their head, just smash it, and they die instantly. Hook them, and we started whacking them on just dead little greenbacks.
You can take them little ones like that and put about 4 of them on there and do that.
Yeah, we just used one, but and that was the ticket, dead bait. I just think there's just so much fry bait right now that for me, it's you want it, but it's not. I've been catching a lot more fish in the little pinfish too, which they didn't want that Sunday.
Oh yeah, I heard it.
Can you say that again?
Little pinfish.
I'm not gonna lie. A few weeks back, I was fishing and I was running.
Well, when the right bait's not working and the only other thing you got is pinfish, like, well, let me try this. So it's been doing decent on the pinfish. The grouper was all pinfish, which that's normal. But
I took somebody out from the show a few weeks ago, and I was fishing the South Shore, and it was after we did some snapper, and that's what they wanted to go do, snapper, and we got our limits. So I said, well, let's go do some redfish. And there was a spot around there I thought we could hit and fish, and we're fishing it. And we're doing okay. Like, we've caught a couple fish, but there's just a lot of activity. I know there's a bunch of fish sitting there. And I was like, man, we're always talking about on the show. Travis is always talking about these pinfish. I hate using pinfish out here, on the flats.
Dude.
And I was like, you know what? Let me just put a pinfish on. It was just 2 guys, so I had them fishing off the front with the white baits. And like I said, they caught a couple, but there was a lot telling me that we could whack these fish. I put a pinfish on. I'm just sitting there. I'm telling these guys, I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this, because we're fishing South Shores. We're Travis fishing.
In honor of Travis.
I'm going to put a pinfish on, just throw it out there. So, dude, I put a pinfish on there, and I just wing it out there and throw it, and I set it in the rod holder. And no sooner do I turn around, and it's game on. So I give the rod to one of the guys, tell the other guy while he's fighting that fish, come here, put a pinfish on, throw that one out. He's on. I'm like, all right, cool. We got 2 fish on.
I should have kept more pinfish.
Yeah, should have kept more. Then I'm just like, and then you only have like 10 pinfish or 150 white
Not
bait.
me. I have the opposite.
Get them out. You can't get them. You can't even find them in there. But
they wouldn't hit the pinfish for me yesterday. And I just think
they wouldn't hit the pinfish.
No, but in previous trips I have used the pinfish, but they wouldn't. Like, I didn't catch one on.
Yesterday
pinfish.
was a Sunday.
Yeah.
They don't eat pinfish on Sundays.
Okay, well, you didn't tell me that before. I mean, you didn't give me the whole manual of catching using pinfish.
That's like right in the beginning of the manual.
I don't like pinfish because the bastards poke me 100 times before I get them through the hook.
Dude,
I will literally,
like, you threw one on the deck, like, you get pissed off and like sticks one on accident. Yeah, you're like, damn.
I love them. The problem is, like, especially around Cockroach Bay, man. There's times where, I'll get my white bait and I'll like purposely not load down my well and like ease out to like 5 foot, 6 foot, and chum and get them pinfish. The hard part about pinfish is, especially at my well, because it's so big, and I've got those 2.5-inch drain tubes, and they sit in the back of the well.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, they'll get behind there, and it doesn't matter
hard to get them out of
what you do to get them out of there, And so a lot of times we'll be on a good bite, and folks that have fished with me.
That's right, Tim.
What happened?
Manny told him he shaved, and Tim goes, he got tired of being confused with me.
Tim knows this, but you guys would be surprised how many people have seen a picture of Tim with a fish or me with a fish.
I was gonna say, if it's live in person, they definitely would know.
And said,
like, why is Rick on his knees?
I've had people with me go, "Hey man, that was a really nice snook you caught." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, well, I saw it. I said, "That wasn't me. That was Tim Whitfield."
What do you mean, like 2 years ago?
I can totally see it.
Tim, we've talked about this before. It's somehow we, I don't get it.
The power of photography.
Yeah,
right.
I guess.
Sylvester Stallone was like my height.
Yeah,
Rambo, dude.
Rambo.
They had to cast special characters.
Tim,
they
just don't understand. Brother from another mother.
There you go. That's the truth, man.
No, to get back to point, you were talking about pinfish and you're talking about cut bait, and the folks I had on the boat the other day, I was telling you guys I had a little bit of trouble getting bait in the morning, white bait, but I did have plenty of pinfish. I bet I had 2.5, 3 dozen pinfish. After throwing on the flats, and good sized ones too. And so I really wasn't worried. Jason gave me a scoop, and then Thompson gave me a scoop of some smaller white baits. But, like hands down, it was great to have some white bait. We caught pretty much everything on our pinfish. And I couldn't get them to figure out and kind of like wait on the bite for a live pinfish, because what ends up happening with a pinfish as opposed to a white bait is, you'll feel that bait, and especially if you tail hook them. I mean, there's all different ways to hook them, but if you fish with me, I like to tail hook a pinfish, and you will feel that fish trying to get away from you. The tendency of people wanting to pull it back, and it's just the opposite. When that thing goes nuts, open your bail for just a split second, because generally there's a game fish chasing it, and he's trying to get away.
Yeah.
Well, if you yank him back, a lot of times that fish will turn off.
Yeah.
And so we had trouble getting those bites to connect with the live, so I just started cutting them in half, and instantly, and even in the area that you came over to us, I think we caught 3 redfish and a couple decent snook. I think our biggest snook was like 25 inches, but I don't think there was any big fish in that area. But 2 to 1, we caught them on pinfish.
I had to that area, so I was around the corner from you, and right before we left, you was like, "I'm gonna go to McDill," and I thought, well, I'm going to kind of go in that area. I hadn't been there in 10 years. Like, I had been in there. I don't fish there regularly. It's such a small area.
Like picnic area?
Yeah. And so when I went there, I literally, I remembered there's cuts in some of these places and deeper troughs. And I had to look on my GPS and charts. I saw the tide was super high. I remember going when I used to go in there, it was super shallow, and most of it, so you have to get a high water. And so we fished it and did okay. We didn't catch a lot of fish in there, but it was cool just doing some different stuff. Then the dock fishing was real slow, but we got all our big fish there on the lower tide. So that it was kind of neat fishing areas. And actually, sometimes when I fish up at Gandy, it's like I feel like I either catch big stuff or I just tank. And I'm like, man, why can't I just find the intermediate? Like, sometimes you want to catch fish to keep people entertained. And with the group charters, as well as I do, sometimes you have clients that are cool with that, and other times they just want to catch fish. So, but it's, I kind of took that approach that morning. I put in my mind that let's go do this, focus, but I some of the stuff I knew kind of where I was going, but I had to refresh my memory on my GPS a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, right. Because you don't fish there all the time, but it's the fishing's getting better. One thing Rick had mentioned, I think it's key that Danny put out there years ago with us is the shorter days. While the heat index is nuts and it's hot, if you walk outside, it's getting light a little later and dark a little earlier.
Yep.
And during them times, it's actually a little bit cooler.
I definitely noticed that.
Day after the storm.
Now, the middle of the day after you walk out, you're going to say, you guys are crazy. It's not cooling off. It kind of is a little bit. It's in the evenings.
Overnights.
The nights are just a hair cooler.
You're getting a little coolness early and late, but you're still getting the same intense heat during that.
I think it's
intense
more.
part of
The
the
difference
day.
is that where in some areas I've been fishing, I was regularly seeing water temps 90 a month ago. Regularly, and now in the heat of while we can't stand it, I was seeing water temps at 86 and a half.
85.
So
85.
it's definitely
yesterday.
those that spending, and you can see it. After from Labor Day until Friday you guys fished. Yeah, so I was off that whole week. I didn't have any trips. Not that we could have run them probably in the middle of the week anyways. But timing bait to go catch it. Notice first day back on the water, which was Saturday. Yeah, I was like, all right, as soon as the sun rips up, it's going to be great. It was 7:15 before that happened. It was 6:50, 6:45. Right. So it seems like already just in the last couple of weeks about 30 minutes difference. So you're right.
But yeah, the fish are definitely they're not committing, but they're starting to shift a little bit, and things are starting to have it. I mean, at first cool front, it's going to fire off. It really is.
I've focused on water temperature. The last few trips that I've ran, it's really been a significant part of where I choose to go fish and how long I sit there. Just like you said, we marked some 90-degree water, 89s. I found snook sitting in those areas. They were very lethargic. The second I moved out towards areas like closer to the river, went a little bit further north. I even went down a little bit further south. And when I got off into about that 3.5-foot stuff is where I started to actually saw a lot of big trout, saw some redfish, found 2 or 3 schools. And then believe it or not, there was quite a few snook sitting way off in these outer potholes on the flats. And like you and I were talking, and I finished my article for Old Salt this month, and one of the things I talked about is we're at the end of the month, coming off that full moon, we're going to start to see negative tides again. And these are like our first fall negative tides. We're already starting to see a little bit of the effects of having a lower tide.
Oh, we've had low tides in the afternoon.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Sure. And so like the last 2 days, that's sort of what we focused on was, fishing the beginning to the end of that tide and really trying to get those fish in transition kind of fall off of these flats and fish them in some little bit deeper areas where they're a little more active because there's still a ton of bait on the flats. I don't know if you've noticed it, but about halfway through that tide, that bait just freaking goes nuts from about halfway out of the bushes, and it'll literally push all the way out to the signs of most of the areas, and that's where the game fish are. That's what we noticed. I'm talking not necessarily just game fish, but your jacks, your bluefish, your ladyfish, the schools of redfish, even some bigger snook. They're laying out in these potholes, just ambushing this bait as it comes off, and from the bar to the bushes, it's like 4 degrees temperature swing.
Even Danny mentioned something here, and let's maybe talk about some other ideas, because I had one that I fell back on over the weekend. He's, because you're saying water temp's key, and I was saying I was marking it higher. You're saying 85 was that number. I definitely saw the same thing. Sandy white bottoms are going to be cooler in the morning. That's definitely one. So if you're trying to find some cooler water, try to stay away from areas that are holding like a muddy, dark, even grassy bottom. Look for that harder terrain that's white, and I call it salt and pepper bottom kind of, because in the first thing in the morning, it's going to retain some of that cool temperature. You later on in the day, it's going to heat up just like anything else. But Danny's right.
And a lot of people don't realize too is that surface water temperature. So we're reading the surface water temperature, and 4 to 6 foot, you may have another 2 to 3 degrees cooler down at the bottom of that, especially in some of these areas that we're talking about along the potholes. And these fish will sit in them. They will find that, for lack of a better term, the thermocline, where there's a little cool spot, and they'll sit there, and as soon as bait comes across their head, they just ambush it. And you can find these areas, especially from, I would say, Cockroach Bay all the way down to the Skyway Bridge right now. Any of those outside sandbars are going to hold these game fish that have pushed off, feeding on a lot of these smaller bait schools that we're catching. So,
well, one thing, too, we had mentioned trout. As you guys know, trout is closed. And the kill rate on trout is not. It's they're gonna die. I mean, even if you release them, there's a decent chance more than snook or reds. Guys, I've been telling people, man, we're not really going after trout. We're not eating them, not unless they absolutely want to. And I would throw that out there. Maybe just think about that. I mean, if you want to catch some trout, that's cool. But to go catch 60 of them and release them, I think when we leave with the trout closure, I think if we leave them fish alone. For the most part, I think you're going to see a huge rebound fast with them. I really do.
Yeah, I think every trout on my boat in the last 4 months has been accidental.
Right.
I haven't tried.
Yeah. And occasionally we'll go catch a few trout, but you know,
trout?
Yeah, don't even want
for them
it.
small ones are the worst too. Like you get the 15 inchers, 14 inches.
And if you use a de-hooker, you're giving them a little bit of a chance.
A fighting
Give
chance.
them a break. Let's let these things rebound because I would like to get back to our old trout fishing where just about every flat you catch them.
Yep.
And something I want to throw out there today, I've been thinking about that. I had some customers the other day. They said, what about trout? I said, guys, we can't keep them. They're going to be 14, 15 inches. Let's
No, I
just
think
go
you're
do
spot
something
on with
else.
that.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously as it gets colder, it gets a little tougher to do that because there's more trout. And I'm actually curious to see how this year goes, even with a little bit of closure we've had, towards the wintertime when they get in there. They're releasing a lot of eggs. I'm curious to see how that goes this year in the rebound because it's going to be fast with trout. I mean, 05 red tide.
Right. It comes back fast.
I fished Fort DeSoto quite a bit back then, and it was decimated. And like within a year or two, like you just started instantly seeing tons of trout.
Oh yeah.
So it'll be good. Just give them a little break. You know, there's plenty of snook out there, and
Good
of
work,
course,
Manny.
there's some redfish around. There's other options. So I think mackerel's gonna probably start being in our cards a little bit more going into next year for keeping fish and trying to make customers happy.
Been in mind.
We had to do that in 2010. You know, Rick, you remember going back then? We had to resort to a lot of mackerel fishing, and we did a lot of trout fishing. Thank God our trout fishery was awesome during them few years of the snook kill.
Right.
So there's plenty of options out there in the bay. Good thing about the bay is there's plenty of wrecks, there's plenty of snapper, grouper. Many years as I've guided and fished it, there's so much stuff that's undiscovered for me to this day, and I know all you guys are all the same way. That's a pretty cool fishery. Having though it is a little crowded at times, it's a good fishery. But thought I'd throw it out there on the trout. Something some people might not think about when they go trout fishing.
Yeah, and then for that, I heard you say good idea, Manny. For anybody that didn't catch what Manny said is try to keep your hands off them. You know, the more you handle those fish in these hot water temperatures, their slime coat really doesn't come back too fast in that type of heat. So if you can, we touched on de-hooker. That's going to be your best bet is if you can just get that hook off without touching the fish.
No, you missed it.
We started talking about water temp,
It was froze with you
we're
taking
talking
the
about
goat.
how that's going to drive somebody's success out there. What are some other ideas? What are some other things you're looking for to? Let's say you're getting out there and you're only getting out there once every other week or so. You don't monitor these water temps consistently. What are features? What are some things you can kind of put in the back of your head to look for that would signal a lower water temp, rather than just driving around a flat watching your machine for the water temp? Flow
would be the first one that I would key into, and then you can look at water clarity, and then you can look at bottom.
Yeah.
Those are going to be the keys that I would take a look at. One thing that makes Tampa Bay a unique fishery as opposed to several other places, and I'll say it again, we always compare it to Charlotte Harbor, and it's the river systems, right? We have the river systems that do so much for our estuary. One of them is water temperatures. They maintain water temperatures, particularly the Alafai River. It has a natural spring, 72 degrees,
love it,
pumping water out.
And
so between the Alafai River, the Palm River, the Hillsborough River, the Little Manatee River, even Lake Tarpon up there, we've got all this flow that comes into the bay, and you'll get these temperature swings between these bodies of water, whether it's the rivers or the lakes that naturally flow into the bay. And what I find, especially going into the fall and the winter, these fish will push up into these areas and actually try to find that water change, that water temperature change, the way that I look at it, because you can go in any of our rivers right now and you're going to see a significant change in water temperature. At some point, it'll literally flip, and the flats will be so cold that the fish will go to the
river
to the stable water temperature to keep that consistent water temp. But at this point, you're inching towards that, and the way I look at it is I'll sort of start in my summertime spots, and I'll just start working toward my wintertime spots if I'm totally blind. Start working in from the bar, working in, and then I've even been catching some fish around the mouth of the river. There's some fish moving into that area, I think staging up for some of this, wintertime stuff we got coming up. So
definitely.
Yeah, Katie and Ernie went with me, see Sunday, last minute. I had a bunch of. That was the craziest week, holiday week, and I had every trip canceled, and I somehow or another booked every day over it, which was great, because it's a slow time of year. But Katie, I told her I would throw Ernie under the bus. She outfished him, caught some nice reds.
She got him, did she?
She did. She did. Man,
they always do, man.
They're awesome to have on the boat, man. We have a good time. I took them out in the tunnel hall, and it wasn't a great day of fishing. I worked my butt off, but we ended up getting some. She got a nice redfish at the end.
I think I saw that one as well.
Yeah. We got so it was a good trip. Obviously, when some customers you take out, it's like I want to have that banner day, and some days just don't happen. The holiday weekend for me was a tough bite. I mean, we caught fish, but it was just a lot of work. Nothing came easy, which is okay. But I was thinking it'd be a little better. Monday, I took some real good buddies of mine, matting them out, and I probably would have canceled anybody else. And I was going to I had my tunnel haul sitting right by my Pathfinder, and I was thinking, man, he didn't bring his wife. I said, maybe we should take that because the tides was low.
Yeah.
And the wind was blowing the north, so it was lower. And I got out the mouth of the river.
I remember that.
And I was thinking, and I had to run the outside, and I'm thinking, probably should have took the other boat, but we made it work. We caught some snook, some snapper, and called it a day. I don't know if we got any redfish on Monday, but hey, it was not every day is going to be a banner day, and the biggest thing, guys, from right now is we're finally getting some of the fresh water cleaned out of the bay. However, I idled up the Common Good today. Thanks for dropping me off, by the way. But when I was putting my boat on the trailer to get over to Alify for the service, I kicked my live well on. And I don't know, a lot of guys probably do know this, but I'll give this tip out there. There's an easy way to tell if your water is fresh if you're up in the river. Look at your sprayer or anything that makes air in your live well, and if there's like bubbles, like it's an aquarium coming out, it's fresh water.
Just taste it.
Or you could taste it, but you can literally look in your well. Like if you got if you're running the Keep Alive system.
That's how I know.
Yeah, you just look.
It'll quit working. It'll quit working.
There's still a lot of fresh water up by your house because I kicked my well on I had some.
You get giant bubbles instead of atomized air.
It's like an aquarium, like a bubbler, where if you get out in that salt, it's almost like atomized.
You know what's funny is when I installed the Keep Alive a few years ago on a couple boats I had, and I was like, all right, it's all up. I'm gonna get this thing going. So I hooked the hose up to it. I'm like,
fresh water?
Yeah, it's doing nothing.
It'll work.
Yeah,
like you can get it dialed in.
Like, these aren't the millions of micro.
But it's definitely not the same setting. You would have,
totally different. Then I put it. I was like, I couldn't believe it, but I didn't want to mess with it. And then I got on the water the next day. I was like, yeah. That's what I was looking for. Millions of tiny microscopic
It makes a
bubbles.
huge difference. I've, we've had our conversation about the Pathfinder leaning post well, just not big enough. And I went ahead and did the clamshell. I took the cover off, clamshell, and then what I did is I've got the bubblers. So instead of doing the Keep Alive pump, because I like to just keep the original pumps, I did the what's it, Danico or what's the
Venturi.
It's a Venturi system. So what I do on the Venturi is I take my bubbler hose and I plug it into the Venturi.
Yeah.
And then it really pumps with my water in. And it's made a decent, and I made it's made a decent.
Even just putting that clamshell, like making that water spray that way.
Well, you get a lot more volume. Did you notice the amount of volume you get of water?
I loved it, man.
That sprayer, because it kills, it's like a hose. You're getting a good spray, but you're cutting your volume down big time on that pump. So it makes a difference. But
on the water temp deal on Sunday, I'd ran up into an area and was fishing where we've been having some success, and I just noticed, I was like, man, it's too hot. The water's too still. And I'm looking around. I really didn't want to abandon. I knew in order for me to find those things, movement, cleaner water, and all that, it was going to have to make a long run. So if you're in a position where you're fishing an area, one thing I did was just change sides of the shoreline to that shaded side, which works especially well when the sun's first coming up. Like in those first couple of hours when you've got one shoreline that's just getting beat on with the sun, and that other one right there that's maybe got the first 20 or 30 feet of shade from those mangroves hanging over. That's another way you can kind of get 1 or 2 degrees lesser. We made that move, and we're able to start putting fish in the boat after a very poor first hour of fishing. But I just knew I wasn't going to find flow, and I wasn't going to find cleaner water. It was going to be the same water with the same no flow.
Grass.
So we changed the other side.
Grass is another one that, it sort of gets overlooked when you talk about haunts for game fish, right?
Yeah.
Particularly redfish. And I'm a firm believer after years of like trying to just be better at being a red fisherman, and especially aggregations or schools of redfish, trying to locate them, pattern them, where they're going to go, where they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their things that they love to do is, especially on a good healthy turtle grass flat, is just lay down and disappear.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't believe they go very far,
Right.
but they will duck down in that turtle grass and just hide out.
Yeah.
You know, trout, snook, redfish, they'll all do the same thing. And I find that sort of just interesting when we talk about locating game fish on those tough days. And a lot of times, man, I'll find fish in grass where you're not seeing them in the potholes. You're not seeing them, you know, particularly from Cockroach Bay, I'd say down to Port Manatee, all that grass flat out there. You can run across it in the tower and you won't see any fish. But you set down in an area
You work it slow.
and start working that area slow, and you'll start catching fish, and you'll never see them, and they're laid down in that grass.
Yep.
That I think holds a little bit different temperature down in there in that
sure it
grass.
does.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially
it's something
that
we don't
thick
really consider.
turtle grass. It's around Pawnee Creek to Port. There's
100%.
there's some really crappy grass and snot grasses there, but in them potholes there's some really clean, good grass, which typically holds good trout when it cools off.
And I believe it holds a lot of bait too, because you know you don't always see that bait dimpling out there.
No.
How many times have you pulled up to get bait in the morning? You pull up and you don't see any bait. You power pull down, you start flicking out, you know, chum, and the next thing you know, you got 10 gazillion baits, and they just all
Sitting
start
down there.
coming out of the grass,
Yeah.
you know. And so there's been times where I've been out there, and especially on those low tides, those real low negative tides, wade fishing, and you'll see those redfish mowing through the grass, eating baits, but they're not tailing eating crabs. They're not slowly eating. They're literally V-waking through and smashing stuff under the surface. So it's definitely an area that they like to kind of hang out in, and I think offers some refuge from some of this heat, especially in this transition period.
Well, think
where
about it,
they're
you get
moving
under
back
there
in.
and you're not needing. They don't have the, you know, they don't have the sun beating on them from all angles. So even it makes perfect sense, and you see it. I see it all the time.
All the time. There's
Like,
several areas
where you have to give it a second. Look, that's a fish sitting right there, and boom.
Well, consider this. I mean, how many large schools of redfish do you know of that aren't somewhere close to a large grass flat?
Yeah, they're not. I mean,
It's just a part of their gig. There's a few of them that get, particularly up north, where they'll get on some sandy areas.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You'll find that when you can't find them, a lot of times
Yeah.
they're laid up on some of the grassy
Yep.
areas.
Scott asked the question about he's asking about flow versus pressure in a live well. Scott, I would personally say that you need the more volume of water you can get in your well. You want
And
to max and
Turn it
out.
over.
Yeah, the more turnover of water, the better off you are. However, with 90-degree water temperatures in the bay, you also need some type of air to push in there. Now, I have bubblers in mine. The problem with a bubbler, it's the same thing in an aquarium. You got this stone sitting here on the bottom of your well, and it does help, but the air bubbles, and to me, they just go straight up, and they go right back into the air.
Mm-hmm.
If you can take that air and push it in and around your well, which is what a Keep Alive system does, and break it down into very small particle bubbles.
Millions of
now,
tiny bubbles.
and now you're flowing water with air through your well, which the air I don't think is a huge deal as the water cools, but when it's hot, I can tell you that the Pathfinder well is great. They say it's 25 gallons. I think I'm actually took a 5-gallon bucket because I'm always trying to figure out how much I actually got. I think I got about 30 because I made my standpipes higher.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed a difference. I have an 1100 pump, and they put a sprayer which comes out of an 1 1/8 fitting. But when you screw the sprayer in, and it's a pretty big hole sprayer, but you're going to less than a 3/4. And how I know I'm getting quite a bit more volume, what I did is I unscrewed that sprayer, and I put just a clamshell that shoots the water. It free flows to the side. How I know that I'm getting more water is I have my standpipes set at a certain level. And the well, when the live wells run with the same standpipes at the same level, get about an
It gets
inch
higher,
higher, which means there's more flow that the standpipes are having a little bit more hard time keeping up with the flow. And it's made a big difference. That's why when you asked me for bait the other day, I'm like, I've been just running. My back well works great. I hate using it. And I've been trying to just run that leaning post because Rick had made a point over the years, and I'm the worst, and I know you are at it, you get all this bait, and then you throw 10 scoops back at your docks. I'm like, why do I? And I hate using the back well on that 25. I'm like, why not just? And I ran a 6-hour trip, and I still threw a little bit of bait back on my well. Do I wish I had 10 more gallons in there? Yes. But my point being is the other day I'm like,
we're throwing that more than we need to, which at the end of the year is just more wear and tear on us.
It is. But when
the fishery,
the downside is when Travis goes, I don't have a bait. Can I get some? And I'm looking. I got these little micro baits, the kill off in there.
Yeah.
So I gave him a scoop. We made it work. But point being is I noticed a pretty substantial difference by adding a little bit of air in with my water flow.
And just taking away some of that restriction is what you're saying.
And taking the restriction away, if you can do that. Now, some boats have a sprayer that's built in to the well where you can't unscrew it. Other ones you can unscrew. If you really want to get better flow and you think skeeter dead spots. Problem with the skeeter wells, they use sprayers at the top of the well.
It absolutely would, Steve. But you've got to. What I did in mine, and you and I have the same well. We've talked about this. Is you've got to get one of those. It's got a recirc, and I wasn't a big fan of the recirc until I went to the Keep Alive in that boat. But the biggest difference for me was going to the clamshells and moving them down. The Skeeter sprayer
is above
the
water
line, spraying straight down, and it's only got one sprayer. So the big move for me, Steve, was to actually take an 1100 pump, tee it off, and give it 2 discharges into the well, both with those directional.
You're maximizing your flow on because 1100 gallons reduced to 3/4 inch. You get a good spray, but you're killing the flow. The other thing too that I have learned this over the years, fish farmers I think got Composite Marine. They do a nice live. I think I'm putting up my next boat, but. Have my leaning posts, my standpipes, drill a little hole at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
So you get that dead ammonia. You want constant new water through that whole well. If you got a sprayer here, and your drain is here, and the water spraying like this, it's just going to go over to the drain, and you got all this dead stuff at the bottom of your well, which is probably the problem with your skeeter.
It is, Steven. That is definitely the problem. That's why you get that dead spot. I know exactly where they are. In fact, my standpipe, now that you bring that up, I actually drilled. Once I made that change and I put the 2 directional fittings and routed the hoses from the pump, instead of going to 1 sprayer, route it to 2 with those. What I had to do, because I knew I was getting more flow, is the standpipe wouldn't keep up with it anymore. It wouldn't even keep up with it. So what I did is I drilled about 15 holes in the bottom of mine, around the bottom, like the bottom 4 inches. And I mean, that was really the biggest difference maker to get it as good as I can in that particular boat. I will say the one good thing about the Skeeter is they use that roto-molded. We talked about that.
Liner.
It's not finished hatches. It's a roto-molded liner, and it's fully. It actually, I think, maintained a better temperature inside there instead of heating up as fast. So you've got that going for you, Steve, but I would definitely think about making that change. And if you text me, I think I still have some pictures of when I set that up to give you a frame of reference.
Maybe if I buy, what we got to do, guys, if I decide to go ahead, I really like the Pathfinder lean post well. It's not as big as I want it. If I do the Composite Marine live well, I'm going to pick it up. Maybe we'll bring it in here. And we'll do it on the show, take the camera, go around it. Because I think what people need to understand, I know. Which one? The composite one? Composite Marine?
He's got 2 different ones. I've got one. I've got his small one on my skiff, and then he makes us.
No, the one that looks a little more.
Yeah, flips
like a leaning post.
That's the one.
That's the one. I love that well. Yeah.
So what you have to understand, what people have to understand is they buy it, they go to the boat show, and they look at a Skeeter, a Pathfinder. A Pathfinder does a good job with their wells. Skeeter does a decent job. But these boats, first off, like a Sea Pro, a Scout, a Tidewater. I had, what's the other one that family sells? I was just talking to a guy that helped. Sportsman. You look at the well, and you look at the drains, and you look at the live well pumps. Half them boats are made out of state. And I said, you know what them people use where they are? Shrimp and mullet. Mm-hmm. That well does great for them.
Right.
We are kind of like a different breed. Mm-hmm. You talk to anybody else.
Yeah, that West Coast.
And they just don't get it. Every boat from a custom. I've had a Canyon Bay. I've had a lot of different boats. Every boat I've gotten, I've had to tweak the live well system.
Sure.
And Rick, I know you've had to play with your Ranger. I mean, now I will tell you the Florida boats, the basic components seem to be there. Like, Pathfinder does 2 drains on that leaning post well. They got the window system, but you got to tweak the window system because they got this big hole that every bait will go through if you don't take a little piece of zip tie it and close the hole off. But if you go to the East Coast, they don't use bait this big. They use big stuff.
Right.
So Canyon Bay, they got a big well with a standard drain with a little pea shooter top on it.
Yeah, you guys had to make those changes. Yeah, you guys made those changes.
I don't.
But my point being is it's not a knock on the company. Boat companies just
I tell you what, though, Canyon Bay, out of all production wells, if you call it a production well, I'd probably say between them and then the one from Vents are probably 2 of the best that I've ever seen or used.
Yeah, no, the Canyon Bay well has a ton of bait.
I mean, even Avenger,
but
that well is very similar to the composite one. I think he even buys some of the ones.
Right?
He does. He 100% buys them.
I know, because I talked to Vince.
He does buy the wells from.
He didn't always, though. He had a well that he used to make. But
the drains are never set up for clogging issues. Even the Canyon Bay. Like, if you bought a Canyon Bay, I don't even know what they're selling now, but I would say they have a spray on the top of a 50-gallon well, and they got one single post that comes up, and it might be a screw-in drain. Not a knock on them.
Talking about the new Canyon Bay?
Yeah.
No, they don't. They've
got
doing
it different.
They've got it.
Well, they were doing it like that, and you'd have to do it different. But
you couldn't turn the well over.
Right.
There's no way you could turn the well over. That well's so deep, you'd never be able to turn it over.
Yeah, the bottom is just stagnant water.
Yeah.
So my point being, you gotta.
Right.
What?
I love it, man.
I didn't see it. What is it? I don't see it.
You got to read the
holes. Bro, we can't help you on that one, bro. You got a live well problem?
Just drill a hole in it,
That's
bro.
like comment of the month, I think, right there.
There's already a hole in it.
Ray, when are we going fishing? He was asking about fishing earlier. Ray's been with me a few times.
Hey, October, Ray. He asked a question earlier I want to touch back on just to get back to some of these guys. He touched on middle of October. It sounds like he might be here. What can we expect fishing-wise in the middle of October?
Snook, reds, the trout fishing picks up. Our grouper fishing should get better, a little bit cooler water temperatures.
I'd say redfish would be your...
Redfish is probably the hot topic. I think the snook will be
ace in the hole.
Good, too.
Yeah.
Snook and reds.
Snook will always be there. I just think that...
Well, but
October's the month for redfish. That's all I can say.
It'll be similar. They fish they've done 2 times on me like a week long, but it'll be like the weeks we fished minus the bad weather we had for he fished in April, but it was like
the worst part of April.
Well, we had to deal with a cold front in mid-April. You know how that is, where it's blowing, but same type of fishing, Ray. Water temps are going to be cooler. It's going to be good. It's a lot of action and good fishing. So, anyways, it just a little. I think that's some useful information for live wells. And what I don't want you to do, if you don't know what you're doing, don't go drill a bunch of holes in your live well because you're going to sink the boat.
Drill it in things that you can replace.
Yeah,
like standpipes.
I'll tell you a good place to go right now. If you think I had a customer had a Crevel, dumbest thing I ever seen. They got an open thing at the bottom of the boat, and he's like, well, you pull on the flat, and it would suck the grass right into the pump. And I thought, there's no way they did this. No screen. I mean, just an open, like what you would have on your drain going out of your transom on the bottom of the boat. So I told...
I got to see that boat, the one Justin's talking about.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, look, man, go to Mahoney's. Go see Tom up there. I said, just tell him to go there, put a high-speed pickup on this thing. And the live well itself was nice. It was big opening, but you'd be sitting on the flat, and the pump would just quit. And it sucked the turtle grass right up to the pump.
That's
it's unbelievable. So, if you don't know what you're doing, but you're not sure about your live well, go talk to Mahoney's. They got some guys that know live wells. Give you the basics. They can put the high-speed pickup in if you need a high-speed pickup.
I think, too, one of the things, too, man, what I've noticed, and because I've had guys running, you're at the boat ramp or you're at, the marina or something, the guy pulls up, and there's always a question about, hey, man, did your bait die today? Or how much bait do you normally keep in your live well? There's a certain point where you get, I don't care if you got the super-duper pump, live well, backflow.
You got too much.
Air, oxygen.
That's
you're
the
only
one I
going to
got.
be able to keep so much bait in your live well.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just, you're going to find that there's only a certain amount you can keep no matter what you do. And the flip side to that is, too, and this may sound a little weird, but, don't compare yourself to a guy like us. We generally will get more bait than what a recreational fisherman should generally need for a day out fishing.
Absolutely.
You know, we're generally kind of going at it a little bit harder. Some days we got 2 trips. Some days I'm getting, just like you said, I may give 2 or 3 scoops of bait to one of you guys in a pinch. If you got a double, this, that, and the other. And so, you know, keep in mind that most fishing guides will generally hold more bait than they're ever going to use. It's just a mute point at that. So
No argument from me.
Don't go spend $2,000 on your $5,000 boat to put this giant live well in that you probably really don't need. Just quit overloading your live well with bait.
Thanks, Matt.
I mean, I see it all the time. The guys with the little tiny wells, and it's plenty of bait to fish all day.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not going to load that down to where you can chum for 6 hours.
Manuel, to answer your question, some of the boat builders do take some of the information in. To stick up for the boat builders, they'll have 6 guides on a program, and sometimes 4 of them don't. They're loud, but they really don't have facts for their loudness.
Right.
Therefore, sometimes they tune us out, even though sometimes they should listen to some of us, if that makes any sense. So some of the boat builders are good about it. Some of them are not. You know, I got labeled at Canyon Bay, oh, you want the Jason well. I'm like, well, hey, the Jason well works. So, because I would have them, and we were extreme. When Travis got his boat, I said, look, you know, put these 2 drains in. Don't do one, because we're always extreme on our bait. But you typically, when I did this, I didn't have issues with bait. Rarely. It worked. So, and you know, to their defense, the average Joe doesn't need to do, you know, dual pumps and dual feed, dual drains. I will tell you that I did dual pumps, and running 2 1100s on a 50-gallon well, I think is too much. At times it helps, but I don't think it helps that much. Where it was nice having dual pumps is I have a pump go out on a trip, and I could literally shut the valve off and run my other one. Especially on Vince's well, because it's only like 40 or 45.
I've got 2 1100s on mine that flow counterclockwise in the well, and I only run one at a time. Yeah. There's certain times.
If you're overpacked and running from the bridge.
There's certain times in the spring when I first load the well down
to get all that stuff out.
I'll turn over the well real quick. But to be honest with you, man, even once I start running, I shut one off because I get so much flow from my pickups that there's no way that the drain system can keep up with it, to be honest with you.
No, I did notice that. But it is nice. Like your pump fails.
Yeah.
And you just, I did the same thing. You go to the bridge and you just can't pull the net in. You're just like, I'm dumping it. And you'll push. Because when you first dump that bait, it's all stressed. It's losing its slime. And you look in the well, it's all nasty. The faster you can push that dirty water out of there, I feel like the better your bait's going to be. But for the most part, most wells, an 1,100-gallon per hour pump is plenty. Some guys are running 15s. I will tell you the problems that I ran in with 1500s. If you're running an additional well, you'll kill your battery. I don't care what size your battery is. Like if you're running 1100 and a 1500, which will have my 26, the 1500 did good, but it was I had a Group 31 battery. It just
it'll drain them.
Yeah, it just drains. It pulls a lot more amps.
Man, Manny and me we're on the same page.
Yeah, you guys should get together.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
plain boats, Manny. I love that.
I have to. Speaking of fishing together. I know I talked to you about it, but Tampa Fishing Outfitters, the charter we donated for a giveaway, it's been announced. All right, so they're trying to get followers on their YouTube page. They're investing a lot in this new YouTube series with all kinds of fishing tips. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I encourage you to. But Costa Del Mar sponsored the first giveaway for them to get to 300 followers. They gave away a pair of Costa shades. Now, when they reach 700, one of those subscribers is going to win a fishing trip with one of us.
Cool.
On the house. So it's very simple. All you have to do is go to YouTube, get on the Tampa Fishing Outfitters, and it's hashtag #FittedToFish. Just subscribe to that page, and you're in. And then when it hits 700, Joy's going to do a raffle, give away a charter to somebody on there, and it's going to be with one of us. So for anybody who's watching now, if you've been wanting to get out with us, there's one way to make it happen. So shoot on over there to YouTube and give that a follow. But that contest is live, and I think they're up to about 400 now. So I would say by the end of the month, that giveaway is going to happen. What's up, Tony? And then I was out at Hula Bay on Saturday. Part of why there were so many boats on the water is because West Coast Marine was doing their demo day. And they had a crowd out there
I saw a bunch of live feeds. The boat looks good. I saw that they kind of revealed the 2700. I guess it's a hybrid bay boat.
I got on.
A nice boat.
Is it nice?
It's sweet, man. It is big. I can tell you what. If it can get in the water that Justin was telling me it can get in, it's going to be the right boat for a lot of people. I mean, it touches a lot of different markets. It seems like it's set up for fishing. The well setup on it was sick. It's got 2 big round wells on port and starboard side in the back deck.
Reminded me of the way a yellowfin's set up.
Exactly.
Like
yep. And they're big and round, and then it still has the lean post well.
And they went to double stepped hull on that one too, didn't they?
Double stepped hull. A lot of deck space. I mean, it's something you should check out if you're in the market for a bigger bay boat. It's funny, and you'll get a kick out of this, Travis. Is when I was pulling up, I was dropping some clients off, and they saw the boat and they're like, oh yeah, and they're like, we started talking about the big bay boats, and guess who rolls by? 2800 Canyon Bay too.
Oh yeah,
right by. First one I'd seen on the water, except for when you were with.
That thing's a beast, man. Yeah. It is a beast.
So it was cool seeing both of those boats out there, but there's definitely a market out there for them. If you want to be able to extend your range a little bit and get in a comfortable ride, so check those out.
They got. I had to work at a Help Family Boat, and they had like an open house boat sale deal because the boat show was closed. They've got it's Triton's old boat. Earl
the
Triton.
2600 or whatever.
Well, yeah, but they basically took the molds, but they're a little bit nicer. Like they put a little more work in the finish work, but they're selling them. I can't remember the name of it.
There's a new company,
Camus or something like that. I think it's
Camus boats. That's
So
they on the East Coast is running them.
Yeah, so it's Triton's old 26, and they I think they did a lot of different stuff. Anyways, I was there, and they have a 28 double stepped. And it's cool, but it's like, man, it's kind of like that Canyon Bay. You're looking at it, you go, man, that thing would be nice riding, but God, it's just big, But it's set up like
there's an upside to all that, but there's a downside too. It takes bigger trolling motors. It takes more batteries.
Everything's just the sheer.
I think.
Weight and size
I
of
would
it
have
was
to probably disagree to some extent on that because that 28, as far as what it's got on it,
it's almost rigged the same way.
My next Canyon Bay build, if we get to that point, which we're close, I'm gonna put a 350 on it. So, and I'm gonna have the same battery setup, the same trolling motor as a 28. The only difference is the weight of the hull. Honestly,
it's just not gonna pull the boat as good.
What's that? No, that type of equipment with that size of boat.
Right. There's a give and a take, and
sure.
You got a live well on the starboard side, a live well on the port side, a main and close post live well. You got all that weight, all that bait. You got the same trolling motor.
You better give Manny a call and get out there.
And you're adding 2 foot of boat, so you're adding weight to that. I'm not saying it's not doable, and I'm saying that it can't be a good.
Yeah, I thought you meant by the investment.
I'm just saying you're going to give up stuff. You're going to.
Oh yeah.
There's a give and take with that.
The best thing to do though, my experience is to get that 28 Camus. I looked. I said, man, that thing's beautiful. It's got super. I can't remember what the dead rise was, but I looked at it and I said, man, that thing's big. I thought, man, I'd like to run it. I personally, the bigger boat I can get away with over the last few years, I missed my 26 Pathfinder for the sheer feet. The layout of the 25 I love, but just the extra feet and a little bit more dead rise. That boat, personally, when you looked at it on the trailer, looked huge. But when you fished it, it does everything that 25 and 24 does. And there's not like a big take from it. But when you get to a certain point, like you said, I haven't been in a 28 Canyon Bay versus the 24, and it's a very similar layout, but you've actually fished it.
I
might roll in a creek and be like, all right, I feel kind of weird.
Or in a breeze, in a current, trying to keep your boat where you want it with the trolling motor. So that's with redfish, I'm always thinking about hole slap.
Oh yeah.
Well, my little 22-foot boat.
They used to be big.
I can maneuver that thing fairly quick, and sometimes cut down on that hole slap and get in position where it's just going to take you longer with it. I'm not knocking the 28 by no means. I'm just saying you're going to give up a little bit by going to that.
One of the things I consider was
those days of running to the bridge. Hey, I've said it all last winter. I said baby boat don't like it. I was calling these guys the night before. Hey, baby boat don't want to go to the bridge tomorrow.
I'm always game to take you.
Can I hitch a ride? Can I hitch a ride? So and I have give and take. So
the Camus is it was a beautiful boat. Like, but it just, man, you look at it, it looks big, but it's also on a trailer. My 26 used to look a lot bigger than when you put it in the water. Canyon Bay, the 24 is the same way. It's got that big flare. You look here like, man, that thing's huge. You put it in the water and it's big, but it don't feel as big as it looks on the trailer. So getting them out and actually test them. I wanted to go by and check that thing out. Justin actually called me last Wednesday because it's got a 400 Merc on there, and he
propping.
Yeah, he's like, man, what do I need to be at? And he's telling us, well, you need to usually, and I shifted him towards an eco it's a safe thing, but I'm assuming they got it propped out right if they were.
Yeah, I talked to him right after he talked to you. I was over there getting my motor serviced.
What numbers were they getting out of that?
I want to say upper 50s already.
Wow, that's good.
Yep.
It's good. With a 400, I mean, they had a 425 Yamaha on that Camus.
Damn, that's a heavy motor.
Yeah, but this boat is big. Like, it didn't look out of place, put it that way. So, but yeah, it's crazy how the industry's going. Rick, you had a big boat 10 years ago.
I remember when 20-foot boat was like the standard guide boat.
I had a 22.
A 20-foot boat was your standard guide boat.
Yeah.
And I got the baby boat now, and it's 22, and it's like, look at that little tiny boat out there.
You have a roomy big 22 there.
Yeah, but it's still small.
That's still probably one out of the 22-foot boat.
It fishes bigger than 22.
That's my favorite one.
I'm still the smallest good boat
well,
out there.
You know what they did on your boat that makes it so good? Small console.
Very small console.
A lot of pass room on the side.
A lot of pass room, a wide boat, and a flared, and they did it with 25, a flared front and the Canyon Bay. They give you that flared round front, which gives you a lot of fishing space.
It fishes bigger, but it don't feel bigger when you're going to the bridge or when you're having that issue.
Justin got 60.
You just got to slow down a little bit.
That's
it eats it pretty good, though.
It does, but it's definitely got limits.
Your boat
definitely got limits.
Reminds me a lot of when I was running my Triton.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's like
my Ranger and your
when I'm in your boat, I feel like I'm in my Triton back to those days because you can run that boat and be comfortable in some pretty nasty stuff.
You can.
You just ain't getting there quick.
Now, have you guys been finding any good chicken wings anywhere lately?
At the wing house, there's some chicken wings.
Justin, what time is it usually good there?
About now.
Oh, okay.
We're down. Justin, what did you end up going with on prop? Just put it on there. I'm curious. No problem, man. Anytime I can help out. I was just curious what they propped that thing out with. But anyhow, we're going to go eat some food, guys, as I am hungry.
I'm starving. Let's do it.
All
right, until next week, guys. And don't forget, shoot on over and subscribe to the YouTube. Fitted to Fish.
Out.
Oh, you're at O'Brien's tomorrow, aren't you, Travis? Or Wednesday. I might swing up there with my